I was a cupbearer and trusted servant of King Artaxerxes, the most important man in the great Persian Empire, but my heart was deeply tied to my people Israel. Hello, my name is Nehemiah, and this is my incredible story. When I learned that Jerusalem was in ruins and its walls had been torn down, I was filled with sadness and concern. After praying and fasting for several days, I asked the king for permission to return to Jerusalem and lead the city's reconstruction. With God's hand upon me, I faced opposition and threats, but I didn't stop until I completed my mission. With great determination and faith, I inspired the exiles to work together, and in just 52 days, we rebuilt the city's walls. Beyond restoring Jerusalem's physical defenses, I also worked to restore my people's faith and spiritual practices, reminding them of the importance of following God's law and being obedient to His word at all times. My life is a testimony to what can be achieved when we let ourselves be guided by God, even in the midst of the toughest adversities. I invite you to stay until the end to hear the full story of my life and learn valuable lessons for your spiritual growth. I am Nehemiah, and my story begins in the city of Susa, where I worked as a cupbearer in the court of King Artaxerxes. Although it might seem like a simple job, being a cupbearer was a great responsibility. My task was to ensure that no drink served to the king was poisoned. This gave me the opportunity to be close to power and to observe politics and diplomacy up close at the heart of the Persian Empire. One unexpected day, my brother Hanani returned from Judah and brought me news that deeply shook me. Jerusalem, the city of our ancestors, was in ruins, and its walls, which once protected its glory and its people, were broken and burned. My heart filled with sorrow as I thought about the disgrace and vulnerability of my people. I spent days and nights mourning the destruction of the holy city and the difficult situation of my fellow citizens. During that time, my life in the palace of Susa became gloomy. My sadness led me to seek comfort in prayer, and I began to plead with God not only for relief but for an opportunity to act. My prayer was intense. I asked for mercy for myself and my people, as well as the wisdom and courage to do whatever was necessary to restore Jerusalem. The opportunity came in an unexpected way. One day, while I was serving wine to the king, he noticed my sadness and asked me the reason. Never before had I shown my emotions in the court. It was very risky to do so, but this time, driven by my burden and my prayers, I told him about the devastation of Jerusalem and my desire to help rebuild it. Surprisingly, instead of the anger or indifference I feared, the king showed a willingness to help. He allowed me to return to Judah and gave me letters to ensure my safe passage through the empire, as well as access to the resources needed to start rebuilding the walls. This gesture from the king not only showed his trust in me, but also demonstrated the unusual way in which God can move the hearts of the powerful. Reflecting on this first chapter of my mission, I invite you to think about how moments of challenge can also be opportunities to grow and act. In life, we often face situations that seem discouraging, but with faith, courage, and determination, we can find the path toward both personal and communal reconstruction and renewal. How can you respond to the calls in your life with the same faith and boldness that changed my destiny? My journey from the court of King Artaxerxes to the ruins of Jerusalem was both a pilgrimage and a mission of reconstruction. I carried not only the materials and the king's letters of authorization with me, but also a heart full of determination and a spirit strengthened by prayer. When I arrived in Jerusalem, I found a city whose scattered stones and broken walls confirmed the news my brother had given me. Before starting any work, I decided to inspect the damage in secret, under the cover of night, accompanied only by a few trusted men. This nighttime inspection was key, not only for understanding the magnitude of the challenge, but also for devising a plan without drawing attention from those who might oppose our purpose. As I walked around the ancient walls by torchlight, each crack and piece of debris spoke to me of despair and abandonment, but they also ignited a spark of hope in me. I knew the task would be dangerous and that it would require more than just physical effort. We would need unshakable faith and commitment. After completing my evaluation, I gathered the leaders and the people of Jerusalem. I shared my vision with them and spoke honestly about the king's support and my calling to rebuild. Their response was a reflection of my own determination. Let us rise and build. So we began our work, not only of physical restoration, but also of spiritual strengthening. As the reconstruction progressed, our unity was tested. From neighboring towns, we received taunts and threats. Sanballat and Tobiah, leaders of the surrounding regions, mocked our efforts, saying that even a small fox could knock down the walls we were building. However, each insult only strengthened our resolve. The construction became a manifestation of our faith. Each stone we placed was an act of defiance against despair, and each completed day was a victory over discouragement. At that time, politics and religion were deeply intertwined, and rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem was both an act of security and of spiritual and political affirmation, a clear message that the Jewish people were returning to what we had been before. As I reflect on this chapter of my life, I invite you to think about your own walls to build or rebuild. What areas of your life need renewal, and what obstacles must you overcome to reach your full potential? Just as in Jerusalem, each step toward restoration requires courage and community. Don't hesitate to seek both on your path to personal and collective rebuilding. The reconstruction of Jerusalem was becoming a symbol of rebirth for our people. With every stone laid and every section of the wall that took shape, we faced new challenges but also celebrated new victories. It was a time when determination and hope intertwined more and more each day. I organized the workers into groups, assigning each family a specific section of the wall. This not only made the work more efficient, but it also gave them a sense of ownership and pride. Each family was literally building their part in the defense and future of our city. From priests to merchants, everyone contributed, whether by mixing mortar or laying stones. However, we were not free from threats. Sanballat, Tobiah, and other local leaders who had initially only mocked us now saw our progress as a threat to their own interests. They began planning attacks to stop our work. In response, we organized guards day and night, and each worker had a tool to build with and a sword to defend with. Amid this constant tension, we learned valuable lessons about the importance of vigilance and preparation. We discovered that rebuilding requires both the shovel and the sword. We must build with one eye on the work and the other on potential enemies. This balance between building and protecting became a metaphor for our spiritual life. Just as we protected the walls under construction, we also had to guard our beliefs and our commitment as a community. Despite the hard work, the bonds between us grew stronger. Sharing the labor and facing challenges together created solidarity that went beyond words. Every stone laid and every night watch brought us closer together, forming a resilient and dedicated community, not just to rebuild a city but to redefine our identity as a people. As I close this chapter of my life, I invite you to reflect on the projects you undertake. How can you strengthen your own walls while remaining vigilant against adversity? In our lives, just as in the reconstruction of Jerusalem, the moments of greatest challenge often precede the moments of greatest growth. I encourage you to think about how the obstacles you face may be preparing you to build something lasting and meaningful. As the walls rose, so did the tensions and threats from our enemies, who were determined to stop our progress. One morning, while supervising the work, a messenger brought alarming news. Sanballat and Tobiah were planning a surprise attack. I immediately called the leaders together, and we devised a defense plan. We instructed each worker to continue their labor with a tool in one hand and a sword in the other, symbolizing our determination to build and defend at the same time. Fear and uncertainty were in the air, but so was an unbreakable courage. I decided that half of our men would continue working on construction, while the other half would remain armed and alert. Additionally, I ordered that everyone carry their weapons even outside of their work shifts, ensuring we were prepared at all times. Curiously, this period of adversity revealed the strength of our character and the depth of our people's faith. Every threat was met not only with vigilance, but also with prayers and songs of protection that echoed over the walls. These expressions of faith not only strengthened our resolve, but also reminded our enemies that our strength came from something much greater than ourselves. In a desperate attempt to demoralize us, Sanballat and Tobiah sent messengers with open letters, trying to defame my name and sow doubt among the people, suggesting that I had ambitions to rebel against the king. I responded calmly and firmly, denying the accusations and reaffirming our sole purpose, the reconstruction of Jerusalem. Through this experience, I learned that the true test of leadership is not how you handle success, but how you face opposition and maintain integrity under pressure. These lessons were vital, not just for me but for everyone in our community. I invite you to reflect on how you face opposition in your own life. Do you give up in the face of challenges, or do you find a way to persevere and hold on to your principles? The walls we built were not only made of stone and mortar, but also of hope, resilience, and unity. In every adversity, there is an opportunity to strengthen our character and deepen our faith. As I approach the end of this story of reconstruction and renewal, I want to share with you how our hard work culminated and how we faced the challenges that arose after the physical reconstruction of Jerusalem. After weeks of tireless work and constant vigilance, we completed the walls. This achievement was not just an architectural triumph, but a true miracle of cooperation, faith, and perseverance. On the day we laid the final stone, the city was filled with songs and celebrations. The inhabitants of Jerusalem, who had seen their homes and defenses crumble, now beheld a tangible symbol of their spiritual and communal rebirth. However, I knew that rebuilding the walls was only the first step toward the complete restoration of our society. With the walls restored, I turned my attention to the internal structure of our community. It was necessary to confront corruption, injustice, and economic practices that had worsened the inequality among our people. I confronted nobles and officials, demanding that they stop the usury, abuse, and debt slavery that especially affected the poorest among us. We convened assemblies to reaffirm the covenants of our faith and law. During these meetings, the book of the law was read aloud before the entire assembly, men, women, and children who could understand. The word of the law, which many had forgotten during exile and dispersion, echoed strongly in the rebuilt streets of Jerusalem, reminding us all of our commitment to the justice and mercy that God commands. This was a time of deep spiritual reflection and revival. We observed fasts and wore sackcloth, signs of humility and repentance, as we confessed our sins and those of our ancestors. It was crucial that every person, from the humblest to the highest in rank, participate in this spiritual renewal, ensuring that the foundations of our reconstruction were not only physical but also moral and spiritual. As a result of these reforms, Jerusalem began to flourish again. Families who had fled the city began to return, drawn by the safety of the walls and the justice of their leaders. Our work did not only rebuild stones but also hearts and souls. At this point in my story, I invite you to reflect on the foundations upon which you build your life. What principles are you building upon? Are they as solid as stone walls, or do they need reform and strengthening? Sometimes it is necessary to tear down old structures to build new ones on firmer foundations of integrity and faith. Just as Jerusalem was transformed, not only in its form but also in its spirit, each of us has the capacity to rebuild and renew our surroundings from the inside out. My name is Nehemiah, and this was my incredible story. Now, at the end of my days, I reflect on the events that marked my life and the life of our nation. My journey was not just a task of physical reconstruction, but also a deep process of spiritual and social renewal. From the fortress of Susa to the rebuilt walls of Jerusalem, every moment was guided by divine providence and a profound sense of duty. First, I learned the importance of prayer as the foundation of all action. Before making any important decision, I always sought God's guidance. This practice not only gave me the necessary direction, but also strengthened my faith in times of challenge and opposition. In our spiritual life, prayer should be our first response, not our last option. You can read more about this in the book of Nehemiah, especially in chapters 1 and 2, where my initial prayer paves the way for everything that follows. Second, perseverance in the face of adversity was key. When faced with opposition and danger, we did not give up. On the contrary, our determination became stronger. This resilience is vital not only in physical projects like the rebuilding of a city, but also in our spiritual lives. You will face obstacles and resistance on your journey of faith, but with perseverance, every challenge can strengthen your character and deepen your commitment to your beliefs. These challenges and how we face them are narrated throughout the book of Nehemiah, chapters 4 and 6. Third, the importance of community and just leadership. The reconstruction of Jerusalem was a communal effort. Each segment of the wall was rebuilt by different groups working together toward a common goal. Similarly, our spiritual growth often depends on our ability to work in community, support one another, and lead with justice. Leaders have the responsibility to guide with integrity and seek the well-being of all. This theme is explored deeply in chapters 5 and 13 of the book of Nehemiah, where I address social justice and economic reform. Looking back, I see that every stone laid and every prayer lifted was part of a much larger plan than I ever imagined. I invite you to reflect on how the lessons from my life can apply to yours. Think about how prayer, perseverance, and a sense of community can influence and strengthen your spiritual journey. May my story inspire you to build and strengthen not only your own walls but also those of your community and faith. Now, I invite you to click on the recommended video to discover the intriguing story of Bathsheba, a figure enveloped in controversy and redemption. Immerse yourself in a tale that intertwines love, power, and profound transformation through the complex chapters of Bathsheba's life. Learn how her story impacted the course of a kingdom and forged a legacy that endures in historical memory. Don't miss this exploration of vulnerability, resilience, and the eternal influence of a woman at the heart of the biblical narrative.